How strange.
Please forget the lateness of the hour.
Something wicked this way comes.
This is the Nighttime Blues.
Spooky.
Power is richer than you think. And now, with your permission.
Hello, good evening, dear listener. By the pricking of my thumbs, something wicked this way comes. You heard it in the intro to this show. And that line, originally spoken by one of the Weird Sisters in Shakespeare's Macbeth, helps to kick off Act 4 of the show. A pricking thumb, a bodily sensation, a subtle warning. We'd probably call it a gut feeling now. Little itch in the nervous system that says, pay attention. When was the last time you had a gut feeling about something? Were you right? It seems like intuition has been relegated to superstition these days. Something soft, irrational. But we still talk about it all the time. Our instincts and hunches, our spidey senses tingling. Let me ask you, do you trust those feelings when they happen? And with all due respect to the Swedish group Roxette, listen to your heart has become such a cliche it barely registers anymore. The ancient Egyptians thought the heart was the seat of the soul. They would take the heart of the deceased and they'd put it on a scale. And they'd weigh it against a feather, representing Maat, the goddess of truth and justice. If the heart was lighter than the feather, the soul was deemed worthy and could proceed to the afterlife. But if the heart was heavy and weighed down by a life of wrongdoing and negative actions, you know how it feels, then that heart would be devoured by Amit, the devourer of souls, and the soul itself would be condemned. So maybe we should listen to our hearts more. It is good advice, honestly, though harder to follow than it seems. Because listening to your heart doesn't mean giving in to every passing impulse or anxiety. It means listening to your intuition. It's a subtle knowing that isn't always easy to name. The Greeks knew this too. Know thyself was carved into the stone at the Temple of Apollo. You know, the home of the Oracle of Delphi. So, if people are reading that on their way to see an oracle, what does that tell you? Why would they put that on top of the temple? How does one get to know oneself? I'm no expert, but I'd imagine it's a lifetime of work. There are hints. Learning to pick up on them, I think, is the trick. Have you ever paid attention to your dreams? Carl Jung once wrote, "Your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside dreams, and who looks inside awakes." Now, what do you make about that?
Got a bad feeling about this.
The Romantics of 19th century Europe were very much drawn to the dream world. And a lot of them even took up a pretty heavy opium habit to get there. Although the opium quickly became the point. They weren't looking to escape reality so much as expand it. They believed that dreams, visions, and feelings could carry truth. Maybe even more truth than waking life. They were trying to listen and trying to interpret. And maybe they got lost in the sauce, but I appreciate the effort. Artists have an advantage here because this is basically all the artist does, is pay attention, explore, and interpret. To turn a feeling into a form, to make something, to look into the fog and make something out of it. And this is why artists are often ahead of their time. They're paying attention to things most people overlook. And through their work, they help the rest of us pay attention too. The media theorist Marshall McLuhan said, "We look at the present through a rear-view mirror so that we march backwards into the future." He's saying that we're always analyzing the present through the lens of the past, and history is important, probably more important than ever, but that's not what McLuhan is talking about. He's talking about perceptions and ideas. By focusing our idea of the present too much on the past, we can limit our idea of the future. He's saying that the future is already here. We just aren't paying attention. And this is where the artist comes in. McLuhan called artists the antenna of the human race. He said they live on the edge of perception. They sense the future, not because they predict it, but because they feel what's already shifting beneath the surface. To quote McLuhan, "It has always been the artist who realizes that the future is the present and uses his work to prepare the ground for it." End quote. And in this way, the artist is a kind of oracle, or maybe even a witch. Someone who works with symbol and suggestion, with half-formed visions and strange inner weather. And when they act on those signals, when they create something from them, they make those signals a reality. Which brings us back to Macbeth. Does Macbeth know himself? Probably not. At least not in the beginning. He's a celebrated warrior and seemingly loyal to the king, but when the witches suggest he could be king, it stirs something in him. Something that he hadn't fully admitted to himself. His ambition, his hunger, and his fear. And he has no sense of his own values to keep these feelings in check, to act as guardrails, so they begin to fester. He's constantly pushing down his own feelings of right and wrong and his own intuition for the pursuit of power. Sitting with the feeling is important. Whatever the feeling may be, it's how we learn to interpret the feelings. It seems to me we're building a society that wants to tell us how to feel, to suggest how we could feel, instead of just letting us feel. A world that wants you to feel sad so it can serve you advertisements for something that'll make you feel better. I often find myself checking the weather app instead of just going outside, and it might sound silly, but it's a different experience. And more often than that, a rain cloud emoji doesn't exactly equate to the potential torrential downpour it may imply. Intuition isn't magic, exactly, but it is mysterious, and it can be cultivated, little by little, if you let yourself get quiet enough to notice. So, what do you think you're working towards? What are you working at? There's something inside you that already knows. Pay attention to the world, and it may give you a lens into a deeper part of yourself. A feeling before the fact. A neon sign in your own handwriting. There's a dream you keep on having and a dream you keep forgetting. You see that phrase written on sidewalk chalk? That's for you. Do you see that trio of crows on that telephone wire? They're talking to you. So pay attention.
Number one tool for the artist and any other person. Intuition, knowing when something is not correct and seeing a way to make it correct. It's a knowingness, a feeling, thinking at the same time. It's a feel and a think at the same time. It's a it's not instinct, it's intuition. Instinct is, I'm hungry, I'm going to eat. I'm going to eat something like this food. Intuition is a higher thing, a knowingness, and it's our big friend. You're going into this field of all knowingness. They say, know that by knowing which all things are known. Think about that phrase. Know that by knowing which all things are known. All things. That's the transcendent. And you know it by being it, by infusing it and becoming it. And it's us. It's the big self with a capital S.
Now, I first heard the phrase "something wicked this way comes" from Ray Bradbury. He nicked it from Shakespeare. It's an evocative title, and I had it spinning around my head when I was trying to write the song. This is the actual first recording of me trying to work it out. Not really any lyrics yet, still just grasping at something. It's starting to take shape enough that I made sure to hit record at least. I didn't know what it was going to become or what it was, but I just tried to follow the thread, and eventually it ends up like this. Kind of crazy to think about. Sometimes songs only reveal their true selves well after they've been written. I didn't know it at the time, but I guess this could be described as a song about intuition. I guess I needed to follow my own intuition to write the song. Or any song, really.
Intuition out there is a difficulty. You don't know ordinarily how intuition works. So when a man has a hunch, you can't tell exactly how he got at that hunch or where that hunch comes from. Well, sometimes, you can really find out how it works by finding the intermediate links. You see, it is a perception by intermediate links, and you only get the result of that whole chain of association. Sometimes you succeed in finding out, but more often you don't. So my definition is, intuition is a perception by ways or means of the unconscious. That is as clear as I can get. Introverted, intuitive has, in a way, a very difficult life, although one of the most interesting lives. But it is difficult often to get into the confidence channel.
Yeah, because you say they're afraid that people will think they're sick.
The things that are interesting to them or are vital to them are utterly strange to the ordinary individual.
That was Carl Jung being interviewed in 1957 about intuition. And I think he knows a thing or two about what he's talking about. And like most anything else, intuition is something that can be trained, it can be honed. There's a lot out there these days that can dull our senses, but with some time and some practice, we can learn to understand these gut feelings and these hunches and these overall spidey senses. Part of what makes it difficult to understand your intuition is that it doesn't work in a medium that we're used to. It's not a medium of language. Perhaps you understand a feeling that says, don't go in there, but it's not literally a voice saying the words, don't go in there. It's more primal than that. It's a language of emotion, and it's a language of symbol. tarot cards are a way for us to communicate with those symbols and make sense of them. Now, before you think that I'm going to go full woo here and you change the channel, just hear me out. There's a few things you need to understand. This is not fortune telling, okay? These cards aren't here to tell your future. They are here to tell you about your present. You can interpret these cards and images on them however you want. Do you want to see them as some sort of larger force reaching out to you? Be my guest. But you can also see them as a sort of Rorschach test. You know, what do you see in these symbols? How do they make sense to you? It's the interpretation of what you see. That's the important part. Regardless of how you want to approach it, it does demand to be taken seriously. And if you take it seriously, it will help you. These symbols are old and ancient, and they still resonate. And if you pay attention to them, you'll start to see how relevant they still are. They're going to be everywhere. So, I have with me here my trusty tarot card deck. Just the classic Rider-Waite-Smith deck. Okay? And I'm pulling a card for you, dear listener, you. I'm pulling a card right on the air. That's right. Whatever you're doing right now, I want you to take a moment and consider that you may need some clarity on. Maybe you have a lingering question. This could push you in the right direction. Maybe you don't know. Maybe you'll get some clarity of something out of there. I don't know. Okay? But here we go. I'm shuffling the cards. I'm shuffling the cards again. Okay. There we go. Here we go. Alright, and I am pulling. Wow. The moon.
Oh, the moon. That might explain things, you see. The moon affects the brain.
Honestly, can't believe we just pulled the moon. I can't imagine a better card to begin with. Now, those familiar with Pamela Coleman Smith's artwork for this deck know the symbols that we're going to kind of dig into here. I mean, we have the moon, and the moon is about the unconscious, right? If the sun is our conscious with its direct light, the light from the moon is indirect light. Okay, this is about things that aren't just revealed directly there. They come at you sideways. Okay, that is the intuition that we're sort of talking about, right? We have two towers on either side. It's kind of a threshold or a passage, right? Very powerful symbol. We have this dog, and we also have a wolf. Okay? You know, the dog being the domesticated, the wolf being the sort of wild instinct. Do with that what you will. There's also water in this card. There's a lot of water. Okay, water is generally like emotional depth, or even, again, the subconscious, the unconscious, the dreams, the imaginal. Something that you kind of fall into. So, I don't know, overall, it is a card of utilizing those channels, those sort of backdoor sideways channels. So what do you do with that? I can't tell you. The moon represents a lot of unconscious, subconscious, intuition, even illusion, right? It's all about what's buried underneath. The other side. Not the daylight, but the nighttime. Maybe there's something there you need to dig into. But that's about as far as I could take you. And the rest, you gotta do on your own. Well, folks, that's our show. Maybe tonight didn't give you any answers, but hopefully it rearranged a few things in your head. All those little bits and pieces you've been sidestepping for a while. There's symbols all around us. They're doing the quiet work. It's just up to you to pay attention to them. But maybe you already knew that. But quiet Thank you to Mr. David Lynch and Dr. Carl Jung for their help in the episode today. If you think this is your vibe and you'd like to hear more of my music, you know where to find me, colinmarks.net. So, wherever you are, in the city, out in the sticks, or in the space in between, I hope the nighttime treats you kindly. This is Colin Marks, and you've been listening to The Nighttime Blues.